My wife cheated on me with a stranger and praised him. You're perfect. I love everything about you. I got revenge by cheating with her best friend to make her feel betrayal. I could see she was angry. The expression on her face was clearly one of anger with a capital A. I could also see something else in her eyes. That look I myself had felt once before, not too long ago, if I was not mistaken, of course. I was in bed with her best friend, and we were both naked, having had a great round of relations. Her friend was, in fact, better at having relations than Betty. I had not been surprised by that. Yauna had that thing that made her so good in bed. Yauna is a curvy blonde goddess, something like Miss Monroe from the 50s and 60s. You know, she exudes sexuality. She overflowed with sexuality and expressed it in such a sexy way. She knew what she had, and she used it often. I also did not have to try very hard to get to Yauna. In fact, once she realized I was hitting on her, it took her maybe 10 seconds to get into pickup mode. Even though I was pretty sure what was going to happen, I was surprised at how quickly she fell, considering I was married to her best friend and all that. Betty was at the door of our bedroom, at first surprised. Then I saw the red of anger rise to her cheeks. Then I saw a flash of something I knew was the pain of discovery. I knew at that moment that I had delivered the message. Betty turned and left. We heard the front door slam shut. I had a couple of things on my mind at that moment. First, the fact that Betty had not said anything. She just stood there looking furious. The second was Yauna, who, to my surprise, started working on me again. She had seen Betty standing there and just went back down as if being naked with me was no big deal. You know, you really surprised me when you started hitting on me earlier, but I am glad you did. I have wanted to be with you since Betty got married. You are a very attractive man. Does it not bother you that Betty knows about this? Babe, she will get over it. If she does not, all the better, because you will be a free agent and I would do anything to be with you for a while. I cannot understand why you changed your mind, but I am glad you did. I felt uncomfortable, even though I knew my reason for being naked in bed, sweaty, after having had relations with a hot and uninhibited woman, was just, you ask. Let me explain. We have been married for a few years, and the novelty of all that had faded. I guess we had reached the 7-year-itch stage, you could say. I had not felt that until that day, 8 weeks ago, 2 months. Just 2 short months. I came home early from work, unexpectedly, and when I entered the house, I was about to shout that I had arrived. Before I did, I noticed the clothes leading to our bedroom door. Men's pants, a woman's skirt, a man's shirt, a woman's blouse. They were telling me to be quiet. So I did. Looking through the bedroom door, I was stunned to find my wife, Betty, naked on top of a guy I did not know. I could see it was not the first time that day. They were so engrossed in each other that they did not hear or see or even feel me. Although I think Betty may have had a premonition, as she froze for a second just as I started to turn to leave. I stopped and stood still. Then she shook herself a little and went back to the action. I stayed in the hallway, listening to them until they finished. I heard them talk, and, from that conversation, I knew that this was not the first time, nor would it be the last. From what I deduced, this had been going on for quite some time. They made plans for their next date, and then I heard them laugh and fool around as they headed to the master bathroom to take a shower. I went out to my car after having checked the wallet in the pants of the jerk I had just found my wife with. Name and address, and some more information like the picture of the wife and 3 children, credit card numbers, and a little more. I drove away, and, since I had 2 hours before my arrival at home was expected, I drove to a nearby park and thought about what I was going to do. Never having been in such a situation, at first I wanted to kill 2 people, but then I realized that would only get me in jail and I would never have peace. I wondered why, of course, since I thought Betty loved and respected me. She always told me she loved me every morning when I went to work, so I had no reason not to believe her until now. Knowing that my marriage was about to end, I decided that a little revenge would do them both good. I also knew that I could never do much harm to Betty, at least not in the way she had just hurt me. But even though I still loved her, I knew I could never live with her after this. Her words burned in my mind. Did you ever expect us to be so good together, Betty? Oh no, Sam, you are so perfect. I mean it, everything about you is perfect. I wish I had met you sooner, I really do. We could have had a great time all these years. Yeah, well, I got married right out of high school, and then I started working for my wife's father, so that would have never happened. But I am like you. I wish we had met a long time ago. You are an amazing woman. You know I love Jim, but he does not do it like you do. I just hope we never get caught. Jim would probably try to hurt you, and he would fail, of course, but then he would have to explain everything, and that would be a huge hassle. Her words were indelibly etched in my heart. How long had she been doing this? I did not know, but I knew it had been too long already. He was bigger than me in height and build, but I think Betty would have been surprised, and more than a little, to find out that he would be the one who would end up hurt. I had been in the military, and she knew that, but she did not know about my boxing days. I kept it a secret from most people since I hurt Billy so badly that day. I was still messed up in the head from that, and I just wanted to forget everything I had done to him in that ring. I was young, and I felt strong, just like Billy. We had an exhibition match, and during that match, he was talking to me between punches. His comments got to me, and my eyes saw red. At one point, he was provoking me about my then-girlfriend and how he would have her that night after he was done with me. It was that kind of friendly banter to irritate a partner. He was not being serious. In the heat of the moment, I did not realize that. He never had a chance, and I started hitting him without mercy. Before the referee could intervene, I had given him 8 hard blows to the head because my first punch made his hands drop. I think he was falling with my first punch, but I never gave him the chance. After the fight, he was taken to the hospital, unconscious, and they could not bring him out of that state. He was in a coma for a week. He was never the same man again. He quit boxing, and it was as if he had lost some part of himself. They had to teach him how to talk and do the basic things of life again. I had taken Billy from him and left a 5-year-old boy in the body of a grown man. I stopped fighting after that, and I also put some money in his bank account from time to time to help take care of him. His parents thought I was a very nice man. I did not feel like a jerk. That is why I did not talk about that time with anyone. I carried that with me all this time, knowing that with my hands I was dangerous. I was much more dangerous than the average person and, definitely, not someone to mess with. Now I was sitting in the park, wanting to hurt 2 people, but knowing that I could never do it without ruining my entire life. So I came up with an alternative plan, one that was twisted, but as twisted as what Betty and Sam had done to me. I started planning what I would do, and today was part of the culmination of my revenge. I cannot say I am proud of everything, but I do feel a little vindicated. I would not sleep well for some time, but I would sleep a little better, at least I thought so. Yana left about an hour after Betty surprised us together. I assumed that after seeing Sam, I was better endowed than him, which was part of why I did not understand Betty's words about how well he fit in her. Later that night, Betty came to the house with her sister in tow, and they picked up her things. I did not say a word, and Betty acted as if I should have been begging for forgiveness. I did not, and I think that hurt her more than finding her and Sam together could have. Her sister stayed for a while when Betty took the last of her things to the truck. Why? Why would you do that to Betty? How could you do it with Yana of all people? I do not understand you anymore, Jim. Try asking Betty about Sam. Then come back and ask me that again. That is if Betty tells you the truth about Sam. Call it whatever you want. I feel pretty good about how things have turned out. I hope Betty understands what this means. What are you talking about? Ask Betty. You are her sister, Susan, but you do not know her very well. I found out about her 2 months ago, and I have had a hell of a time keeping myself in check. Just ask Betty all about Sam. Then remind her that it takes 2 to tango, and once one starts that tango, do not expect the other partner in the marriage not to do something about it. Are you saying Betty cheated on you? Liar. I have it on tape, several in fact. I also have them in my mind since the first time I saw them. Yes, Betty cheated on me. She started this mess, and now I am finishing it. She can have her lover, and I hope they drown in each other. After they left, I made the call I had been dreading. Things had been revealed, and I had to get in touch with Sam's wife before he could put any control on what was about to become public. After having seen them together that day, I had devised a plan of action. Part of that plan had been to get revenge and let Betty catch me doing it. I wanted her to feel that intense pain of discovery, as I felt, or at least I hoped she would feel that pain. After all, I had felt that pain not too long ago, and it was still a raw wound in my heart. Part of my plan had been to record the 2 lovers together, which had not been difficult. They met 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right after lunch, and they always did it in our bedroom. I was not sure how long it had been going on, but it had been long enough for me to realize that our entire marriage was a sham. I simply installed a camera and a timer and recorded them digitally. Every time I downloaded the material to my computer, I felt sick. It took a lot for me to stay undercover as I did, mainly because I was constantly fighting the urge to kill and maim both of them. I had also moved money, investments, and other financial matters. After my call to Sam's wife, with the promise of copies of what I had recorded, I made another call to my bank. I found out that Betty had just discovered the changes and had taken it out on the poor girl there, like a tornado. I felt bad that innocent people had to be part of such an unpleasant scene, but I really did not have a way to isolate some parts of my plan moving as fast as I did. I was alone for the rest of the week, and, actually, I did not care much, considering what had happened. Susan called me one day and made me make an appointment to talk to her. I was reluctant to do so because I thought she would try to push Betty back into my life, and I could not allow that. I still loved her, but that would eventually disappear, and what Betty had done to our marriage was too much for this man. I did not know how it had happened, and I did not care either. That Betty had done it was more than enough. My revenge had been harsh, but nothing compared to what her sister put her through after the truth came out. So Betty turned out to be a stupid woman. I am sorry, Jim. Well, I never expected to hear that from you, Susan. Hey, she had the best man in the world, and she ruined it all by having that sordid affair. I hope you never take her back. That is for sure. She deserves it. Then your hopes will be fulfilled because I have already filed the papers. I also gave copies of everything I had to her lover's wife, so I imagine he will be suffering at this moment too. Yauna, why her of all people? You only did it with her so Betty would find out, I know. I asked Yauna about it, and she was pretty direct in telling me the story, so to speak. But why did you choose her? She was willing for my plan, and she lives nearby. In fact, once she understood why I was doing what I was doing, she insisted on being the one with me when Betty found out. I always thought they were friends. Yes, me too. I guess not. You know, maybe Betty is as shallow as Yauna, and I just never realized it. Yauna told me she had always wanted me, so it was much better to know that beforehand. Remind me never to cross you, Jim, by the way. Why? My only other alternative was to physically harm both of them. I have been through that before. I never want to go through it again. It still haunts me. What have you been through before? It haunts you. Forget it. Water under the bridge, and I do not want to talk about it now. My thoughts were in that ring. That day, so long ago. I wish I had seen the look on her face when she found you too. I bet she was furious. Why? Why, Jim? Why are you being so nice all of a sudden? And why do you not defend your sister? After all, she is your family. Sue, first of all, I was always jealous of Betty when she met you, Jim. I always had a crush on you, always. Second, she had, as I said, the best man in the world and still could not be happy just with you. I cannot understand what she was thinking. Yes, well, that is something I cannot understand either, but for very different reasons than yours, I suppose. You could have left her some money, you know? Mom and Dad were furious with you until I found out what she had been doing with Sam, and once I told them, well, things changed pretty quickly. Dad wanted to kick her out immediately, but Mom managed to prevent it, barely. I thought for a moment that Dad was going to kick Mom out along with her. It was a very close call. Wow. Did you know that Mom and Dad had a similar situation in their early days, right? No. Oh yes. Dad caught Mom cheating on him, and he went crazy. Dad beat her lover to a pulp, almost killing him. He kicked Mom out for a while, but eventually he took her back. I guess a lot of people are surprised that their marriage managed to survive. The other couple did not make it. They got divorced quickly. Wow, I never knew that. I guess Dad thought like father, like son. He was even a little upset with me for a while too, but he got over it. It is a miracle that Betty did not think of that before she strayed. We talked a little more, but I wanted to finish and go home. Since Betty was no longer there, I had been left with cleaning the house, things I had taken for granted when I was so happily married. Susan, however, wanted to talk. It took me a while, but I finally realized that she was trying to find a way to get close to me. I stopped her as soon as I realized. Susan, why are you talking to me as if I were suddenly something more to you? Look, Jim, just because Betty decided to throw her marriage overboard does not mean that I do not find you attractive and someone I would like to get to know better. Oh, well, honestly, Sue, I am not interested in starting anything right now. My adventure was to show Betty what it feels like to have a spouse who cheats on you with someone. I admit it had a bit of excitement, but I discovered that I cannot continue cheating, at least not until this whole thing with Betty is resolved and over. I am not made for it. Will you give me a chance? I do not know, Sue. Honestly, I do not know. Maybe, but do not hold your breath. I might end up moving somewhere else. All this has messed up my mind quite a bit. She left a little wiser and a little sadder, I think. She is an attractive woman, and any man would be lucky to have her. But I had a problem with her sister being too close, so to speak. I had been married to her sister until this whole mess happened. Now I wanted distance from my future ex-wife. My life went on pretty well for a while after everything calmed down. It took 4 long months, but eventually the courts and the judge reached a fair decision and they granted us the divorce. Actually, they granted me the divorce, since Betty, at first, refused to allow it, then tried to turn it around, and finally tried to get more money from me. Ours was a typical, semi-contested divorce, but I held on, and my lawyer turned out to be a good investment. Now I was officially single and single. I took the being single part to heart. I had trouble sleeping. I was miserable at home, and soon I learned that I had to get rid of the house to try to find peace of mind. In the divorce, I ended up with the house, so I put it on the market. I had tried for months to live there, but that damn place had too many memories now, mostly bad ones, so I realized I had to leave. I discovered several things in the process. During the divorce, for some reason, the lawyers had used the original appraisal instead of getting a new one, partly due to the fact that, at the time the appraisal was supposed to be done, Betty was sure she would get back with her, so she told her lawyer to use the appraisal we already had, since it was only 3 years old. Because of that, when the real estate agent presented a new value, I suddenly found myself with a house that was worth half as much more than I thought. The other thing was that my house was in a popular and desirable area for almost everyone who knew it was on the market. By the time the real estate agent put the house up for sale, there were people lining up to see it. When it finally sold, 6 couples were bidding on it, and it was a total war between them to get my house. I ended up accepting an offer that was well above the estimated value. Moving to a new job on the other side of the country, I soon found myself in a comfortable, though lonely, existence. New places, new people, and new work, all stressful and at the same time relaxing too. I did not think much about Betty, although I did think about Sue from time to time. There was something there, I knew it, but I did not know what it could have become. Here I am, recently divorced and alone, so terribly alone. My lover of the last few years has left me as if I were the plague, trying to avoid ending up divorced like me. Once I knew I had been caught, I cut all ties with Sam. Too late. In effect, we both left each other, but in both cases, well, I thought I could turn things around and end up back at home with my husband. And in that I also discovered that the man I had married had a strong backbone and endured all my drama. Looking back, I can clearly see that I really messed it up. I had the perfect husband, one that almost any woman would kill to have, and I threw him into the world of available women just so I could have a little excitement on the side. That was Sam completely. By the way, he was excitement for me. When we did it, I had that mischievous feeling of cheating on Jim. If I had been thinking straight, I would have never done it. I got bored and then I acted in a way that was self-destructive like a drug habit, or becoming an alcoholic, or any number of other things that people do to themselves. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I would never in a billion years have cheated on Jim. If I had known how hurt and angry it would make him, I would have cut my wrists before cheating on him. With hindsight, you know what they say about that, 20/20ths and all that. I have been a terrible and stupid fool. I spent several weeks thinking about what I had done and how I ended up like this. I cannot pinpoint the exact moment I decided it would be okay to sleep with another man behind Jim's back, as I did. I cannot tell you why I would do something so stupid. I cannot even plead a blonde moment, as I am a redhead. I wish I could undo everything. Now I am alone, and I have to figure out what my next step in life will be. I am young enough to start over, but I really do not want to do that. I want Jim back, and I want my life back, the life I had before I slept with another man and ruined the respect Jim had for me. Was it worth it? No way. No way is what I am going through worth all the supposed fun I was having. Sometimes I think that, knowing what I did, no man will ever see me as wife material again. They can jump on my bones, but the being a good wife part is probably over for me forever. I ruined that, and it is public knowledge that I did not have my priorities in life straight. I have no answers for you about why I did what I did. I know that now it hurts, that I sleep alone every night, that I hurt my husband, the man I truly love more in my life, beyond any hope of recovery. Like water under the bridge, I can never go back to that life, except in my memories. I have already rejected several dates and coffee offers from men who want to get to know me. I do not want anything with any man, with one single exception, and I pushed him away from me. You would think that a smart woman like me could differentiate between being a good wife and being a not. Before you say it, I never slept with anyone other than Sam and Jim. I was never tempted. Sam and I met under strange circumstances, and we started after having known each other for several years. Just, believe it or not, it just happened. Neither of us planned to end up in bed, but once we did, it became a kind of drug. Our encounters were full of innuendo, of danger, and the thrill of the illicit relationship we had. Each time seemed better than the last, until the knowledge that Jim had discovered me hit me. Then, a black hole spread around me and swallowed me, absorbing me. Jim discovered me. Well, that is not entirely true. I have wanted a man, that man I chased away. He will not be near me almost ever again. My mom and dad are furious with me. Dad does not even want to talk to me yet. The worst is my sister. I could see her working on Jim, trying to catch him in her grip. She would be a better woman for him, I will admit. Susan has always been the type of woman who keeps her man interested in her and too busy with her for either of them to stray. She is also the type of woman who has one relationship at a time, even since high school. She would break up with a guy for a long time before starting with another. I never understood that in her, but now I see that I was blind, even back then, to be the right kind of woman for a man. Do not get me wrong. I love my sister, and if she were to catch Jim, I would be happy for her. Yes, happy, although I would feel a deep pain at losing my husband to her, someone I had completely to myself, and I disappointed him completely. I am no longer the happy person I used to be, nor am I the cheater I was. I learned my lesson, but in my case, that lesson came too late, and that final grade came at the highest price. I do not think I will ever want another man again. I cannot have the one I had and I lost him because of another man I do not want anymore. Jim sold our house, our home. I know it is my fault too, but it still hurts because he moved to the other side of the country and away from me. I am sure he will find someone else, and that also hurts because I know how kind, good, and wonderful he is, and I let him go. It is not fair that I pushed him away. I knew for sure when he left the check from the sale of the house, my share. He did not have to, but he took the difference between the original appraisal and what he sold it for and gave me half, even though I was unfaithful to him as I was. I held out my hand so he could place the check there, and, as he did, the look in his eyes was enough to make me wish I could fall into the nearest hole and never come out. Where there was once love and that indefinable lust, now there was only coldness, darkness, and anger. Where his eyes once shone with a deep blue, now they were an icy light blue with small needles of pain. Sam and I had been having our affair for a little over 2 years when we were discovered. It all started, as I recall, at a barbecue one weekend afternoon, and Sam, being the new guy at work, was dragged along with a few others. Jim was called away just before Sam arrived, so I took over the cooking. There were people from where I worked and where Jim worked that night, and, as things were winding down, it was just Sam, me, and a young couple. Finally, the young couple left, leaving Sam and me alone. During the night, I felt more attracted to him than I had felt at work. He was one of my department colleagues, and his ability to make me laugh ignited a deep spark within me. When everyone had left, I was having all kinds of thoughts and fighting with myself over some of the more unpleasant thoughts that were coming up. Sam decided to leave after we had talked and laughed for about another hour. Jim had not yet returned home, and I felt dizzy from the beers I had had. I walked him to the door, and there he thanked me for the invitation. I told him I was glad he had come. The next thing I knew, he leaned in and kissed me. It was a light, friendly kiss that should have brushed my cheek, but I turned my head at the last moment, wondering what I was doing. When his lips touched mine, sparks, lots and lots of sparks. I felt a deep tingling all over my being, and I feared that Sam could see that I wanted him. I was able to stand firm until he left. That warm feeling of his lips on mine stayed with me until late into the night. I knew it. He was married, just like me. I knew that what I felt for him at that moment was something that a married woman like me should not feel for another man who was not her husband. But even though my mind struggled with the implications of what had happened, I found myself wanting more. After that, when we saw each other at work, he always had a kind comment, telling me how beautiful and attractive I was and joking with me more and more. I started to want something more from our time together, but I did not know how to approach it with my feelings. I did not want to hurt Jim. I just wanted to feel something that had escaped me at some point in my life. Sam, without possibly knowing it, had ignited that deep fire within me. Later that summer, we had another of our many barbecues, and, once again, Jim was called away. This time, before starting, I decided to cancel it. I managed to communicate with everyone except Sam. For some reason, I forgot to call him to tell him that the barbecue was canceled until he knocked on our door. At first surprised, I realized that I had invited him in before mentioning that the barbecue had been canceled. Freudian of me. Although I pushed aside any guilt I felt in the glow of Sam's easy banter and jokes. I also knew that his wife could not come on this occasion because she had flown back to be with her mother, who was having an operation. He was only going to stay for a little while, and we were still at the door of our house. I took his hand and led him inside, hoping he would stay. As I did, my heart began to beat loudly. I could feel that deep fire within me exploding, and I knew that if Sam did something right that night, I would be with him. Sam did his part without realizing it, probably, how excited I was and how much I wanted him. By the time things calmed down, we were naked in bed. I felt for the first time a twinge of guilt for having cheated on Jim. Sam must have felt something too because he started joking nervously. His jokes soon turned into several, and then we were both laughing. The guilt was gone, washed away with laughter. After that night, it became more intense and more intense, until we both realized that we had to cool down a bit or we would be discovered. So we agreed to meet on specific days. At first it was once a month, very soon it was once a week. Then, when Jim came in and saw me, it was 3 times a week at my house and stolen moments here and there, whenever we could. It had become a drug to which I was addicted. I think Sam was too. We both knew we loved our spouses, we both knew it was wrong, but it was so deliciously dirty and exciting that neither of us could stop at that point. I never knew that Jim had caught me and Sam together until I caught him with my best friend. I should have known something was up once I caught him with Yan. Jim was not, and is not the type of man who falls for or gets involved with any woman who crosses his path. Until my sister told me why he had caught Jim and Yana together, I thought they did not even suspect my infidelity. When I opened the door to our bedroom, I saw Jim and the look in his eyes when he met mine, a look of self-satisfaction, of smugness. My anger had been growing, and then the knowledge that Jim's look was one of possession, as if he knew something, hit me. Inside, I was dying. My love, my husband, was in bed, naked, with my best friend. How dare he? How dare I? It hit me like a bucket of ice water. This was what it felt like to know that Jim was cheating on me, and it hurt. Oh, how it hurt. The implications of my affair now collapsed around me. I had to run away. I had to get out of there. I turned and left just because I knew that if I started screaming, or, worse, everything would come out, and, at that moment, I could not face my own secret. Once alone and thinking more clearly, I knew that Jim must have discovered my secret, and catching him with my best friend had been his revenge. If I had hurt him half as much as I felt that night, we had destroyed our relationship. My next step was to resist the divorce and try to fix things. Of course, Sam was immediately ruled out, as I mentioned before. Too little and far from enough. Then I tried to convince Jim to go to therapy and that I would do whatever he wanted. He just stared at me before walking away. I tried everything I could, but between my parents reproaching me, the mess of seeing Yana with Jim, and the smiles on their faces when I caught him, I got angry. I know I had no right to be angry, but still, Jim was my husband. That was what I thought in my confusion at that moment. I tried to harm Jim financially. That did not work one bit. Jim's lawyer was known as the best in the state in divorce cases, and the best lawyer I could afford was a guy who wore a cheap suit with the smell of smoke and an air of mothballs floating around. Needless to say, I did not do very well. However, Jim surprised me. He gave in a little and gave me some money that I never thought I would see. Although he did not leave me broke, I deserved it. So now I am here, in this neglected apartment, with noisy neighbors and a not-too-safe street outside. They almost took my job, but Yana, of all people, managed to save it for me. I wanted to hate her, but she just acted according to what was natural for her, and, although Jim was my husband, once she knew that I had more or less let him go, her guilt was minimized. We do not talk or go out together, do not get me wrong, but she did fight for me and help me keep my job. I guess she felt a little sorry for me. Somehow, Maybe because my actions reminded her of how unstable her own life was too. Some would call her a free spirit, but most of the men I heard talk about her probably thought she was one, which, I suppose, was true. Of course, now I also belong to that group. I am not fooling myself. If I had not been caught cheating and then had discovered my husband with my best friend, I would still be seeing Sam. I am sure of that. Now, after being caught and having paid the price, the dear price of that pain I feel every day when I wake up alone, I am aware of one thing. I should have never gone down that path from the beginning. I have no excuse. I am a grown woman, and I should have been able to resist doing what I did. I cannot even blame Sam because I feel that I was the one who started this whole mess. I still think about that day when I came home about to take a shower for my meeting with Sam, and I found Jim with Yauna. I could not believe the pain that flooded my heart seeing them together like that. I wanted to scream at Jim, kill Yauna, and scream at them both. But suddenly I realized that I had been doing exactly the same thing to Jim all this time. Ashamed, I simply left at that moment. I never knew that Jim already knew about Sam and me. If I had known, maybe I would have acted differently and begged him to forgive me, as I would have forgiven him for his time with Yan. Of course, that did not happen, and I highly doubt it would have worked anyway. Jim is completely resolute once he has decided on a course of action. I never thought about being discovered. I never thought about how much I would hurt my husband with my infidelity. I never thought about what I was in danger of losing until it was too late, and I lost everything. This dark episode in my life has been transformative and very educational. Now I know what it feels like for someone to tear your heart out by the roots and throw it aside. I know what it is to lose focus on something you love deeply and have to rebuild your life after the fact. During the divorce, I discovered things about my husband that I had never known. For example, some guy to whom he had been giving money throughout our marriage. My lawyer had delved into his past and discovered that Sam and I had been lucky. Jim could have killed both of us with his own hands. That shocking news was the most surprising thing I could have learned about my husband all the years we were married. Jim never even hinted that he had boxed or been a semi-professional boxer. I had never heard him tell about the fight in which he almost killed a man. I had never heard about how he monthly deposited money into that same man's bank account, and I had no idea. As the divorce dragged on, I remember discovering how much strength my husband also had. What Sam and I had done together for selfish reasons was haunting us. Jim had arranged for everything I had on Sam and me to go to Sam's wife. His divorce was uglier than mine. Another thing I discovered was that it was not Sam's first time cheating on his wife. He had been with other women, even while he was with me. How his wife must have felt when she found out. However, my guilt did not diminish. In this mess, I always had the option to say no, and I failed in my vows by not doing so. A simple no silently from me to myself would have been all it would have taken. Talking to Billy's parents had enlightened me in many ways about the kind of man I had married. His actions after that fight had been his penance, I am sure. But Billy was not a small man by any means. Billy's parents only had good things to say about the man who had so severely injured their only son. Billy himself had spoken well of him. He even referred to Jim as his best friend. I, Jim's wife for 7 years, did not even know it. Other acts of kindness that my husband had done for many others came to light in my lawyer's investigation. At one point, my lawyer said that anyone as respected and kind as my husband would be extremely difficult to find anything wrong with, a statement that turned out to be true. The only stain on my husband was his relationship with Yauna. That had been planned by him to show me how it feels to have a spouse who cheats on you. To be true to oneself, at least I have that now, after the fact. I have it, knowing what it really feels like to be cheated on, how it tears your heart out and stomps on it. I know I will never cheat on someone again, ever. I wish I had just known that before. Oh, how I wish I had listened to that little voice in my head right after that first kiss at my door so long ago. After hearing the whole story, we can see what a good person Jim was, how he helped his friend Bill after having made the mistake of hitting him, how he left half of the house money to Betty. As Betty said, Jim's only stain was being with Yauna. If you like the story, leave us a like and follow us to see more.